Welcome to the Blizzard 25th Anniversary, a look back panel.
I love you too. Good morning, Blizzcon. How are you? An emphatic woo. Excellent. My name's Sean Day9 Plot, and I am absolutely thrilled to be here because on this panel today, we're celebrating 25 years of Blizzard. Woo! Congratulations. I've been a Blizzard fanboy my whole life. I assume some of you have been as well. This very clap-happy person on the left. And today, I'm so excited to have 5 individuals who've been with Blizzard since the beginning. They're going to be talking all about the history, what Blizzard was like behind the scenes, and I can't wait. So for our panelists, we're going to have them start off with an introduction, your name and occupation, and a little bit about what you've done at Blizzard. Mike, let's start with you.
So my name's Mike Morheim. Actually...
Yeah, what a name!
I was born with that. When we first started the company, I was actually vice president of the company. Alan was president over there. I was sort of, in addition to programming, we all wore a lot of hats. So I was kind of IT, purchasing, sort of the operations side of things. Nowadays, I get to do the opening ceremony at Blizzcon.
Killing it. I love the cool joke. That was great.
Oh, thank
Classic.
you. Yeah.
Frank.
My name's Frank Pierce. I'm Chief Development Officer. So in the early days, I was fortunate enough to be able to write a lot of code, especially for the SNES titles that we worked on. And there was no one else to answer the phone and sit at reception, so I did a little bit of that. More recently, I have the luxury of being able to look at everything that's work in progress before all of you get to see it. You know, sometimes I get to participate in opening ceremony, and sometimes I draw the short straw and do closing ceremony.
Sometimes you get to do both.
Sometimes I do both.
Alan. First of all, Alan, welcome back.
Thank you. So my name is Alan Adham. As Sean mentioned, I'm recently returned. I have the best job at Blizzard. I'm the Senior VP and Executive Producer in charge of incubation and new products. So thank you, Mike and Frank, for that. In the early days, I did a bit of programming and design on games like Lost Vikings and Rock and Roll Racing. And then as the company got a little larger, it shifted more to design and production, executive producer on games like Warcraft and Starcraft. And my last project before going on an extended 10-year sabbatical was I was lead designer on World of Warcraft. So I'm happy to be back.
Bob, take it away.
Greetings, BlizzCon. I'm Bob Fitch, and I started... Oh. I started when the company was 10 months old or so, brought in to work on Rock and Roll Racing. That was my first game that I ever made, very exciting. Later, I engineered on pretty much everything we've ever made or designed or helped or tested or whatever. So if there's a game, I've worked on it. But a couple of the things that you might know most would be the StarCraft AI, StarCraft Brood War, actually did all the AI programming for Warcraft, Warcraft 2, Warcraft 3, all that. Love doing AI programming. Also went and spent a year on World of Warcraft doing the high-end game balanced the game, wrote some of the combat systems, did all the high-end loot that came out with vanilla World of Warcraft. So those are probably two of the things you'd know most. But like they said, lots of stuff, lots of hats.
Bob
move on to
left
Sam.
out. Bob left out. Most recently, he was tech director on Hearthstone.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, baby.
More recently, tech director on Hearthstone.
That's that little card game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the important thing is that Bob is responsible for the Brood War AI 5 pooling sometimes. You have to own up to that now, because the first game I ever played against a computer as a child, I just beat in the single player. I was ready to take on the PC, and I got 5 pooled, and I couldn't believe it. You monster.
That's the way I rolled. I figured, you got to really teach them right and give them the hardcore experience right away.
And look what I turned into. A host in a
See?
purple shirt. Thank you for that.
It shaped you. It shaped you.
Sam.
Hello, BlizzCon. Hello, I'm Samwise Didier. I am a Samuro. I am the Panda King. And the senior art director at Blizzard Entertainment. I've been honored and lucky enough to work on almost every game I think that we've ever done. And it's been quite a privilege because we have so many great games that we've made. Blizzard is about so many different games, so many different communities. It's quite cool seeing all the people here from all the different games, the Warcraft, StarCraft, Diablo, Overwatch, Hearthstone, Heroes of the Storm. Welcome.
Damn, killing it, Sam. Love it. Now, there's a whole lot that you can read about the development process of all the different games. The things that we're really interested in today are some of those behind-the-scenes stories. And, in talking to Mike and Frank, they tell me that, Alan, you're really the one that first stepped forward and first wanted to get Blizzard started. You were like the official founder. Tell me about that. What went through your head that made you want to make Blizzard?
Well, like probably everybody in this auditorium, I was playing video games at a very early age. I started writing code and making my own games at the age of about 14. And back then it was very different because one programmer could write a game start to finish, do your own art and your own sound effects, and actually publish a competitive game. So I'd been writing games through high school and college, and I knew that the day I graduated college, I knew that I wanted to start a company. I was fortunate to meet Mike and Frank at UCLA and a couple other friends, all of us engineers, and we sort of developed this idea that if we could band together and start a gaming company instead of getting kind of sapped off piecemeal to the IBMs and the Microsofts of the world, that we might be able to have some fun and make some video games. We had, of course, no idea that one day it would turn into anything like we have here today. It was really just about having some fun. We had no business plan. I think in the back of my mind, there was a 50-50 chance we wouldn't make it past a year, but we would have had a lot of fun. And at that point, we'd be 22 and would have gone and got regular jobs. When I think about the miracle the many miracles required for us to be sitting here today, it's really pretty spectacular. In the early days, we used to put every other payroll on our personal credit cards, depending on milestone payments from our publishers. And I don't think most of these guys know that for the first 3 years, we were probably a week or two away from bankruptcy and on any given day. So to be here today is really something pretty spectacular.
So, Mike. You guys have this huge reputation for being focused on quality. Don't release a game until it's done. Did that start like on day one, like right from the get-go? When you're in the situation, like Alan said, what was it like during those early days?
I think one of the early lessons that we learned, or that I learned, was when you're working on something, you can get really, really close to what you're working on, that you don't see necessarily the problems that others will see who are not working on it. And so, one of the early lessons, I think with Lost Vikings, we were working on this game and we thought it was great, we thought it was done. That was published by Interplay. And Brian Fargo, president of Interplay, he always took home the games and played them before they released them. So he took home Lost Vikings, and he had so much, he had all these notes and feedback, and this level's too hard, and this level's too this or that, and I don't like the look of the Vikings, we need to redraw them. And my attitude was, what? It's fine,
Fucking
it's
kidding
great.
me?
But Alan had a very different idea, different approach, and he basically said, no, wait, guys, actually, he's right. We do need to fix this stuff. And actually, Brian lent us one of their artists from Interplay who helped redraw the Vikings, and they looked a lot better, and we took his feedback, and we made the levels a lot better, and I saw what a difference it made to the game. That is something that we took forward pretty much on every other Blizzard game. And this idea where kind of as you're developing a game, getting increasingly wide feedback from larger and larger groups of people that were not involved in the decisions in the creation of the product can make such a big difference. And that's the process we use now. And so that's why actually we involve you guys in helping us polish our games. The very last stage of development is going into an open beta. And now everything goes up on the PTR, so you can help us see what we don't see.
Now, Bob, I know that you didn't join immediately. You said you were 10 months after...
I was about 10 months into the company. They needed a programmer to work on Rock and Roll Racing, and a friend of a friend of a friend said, hey, I know this guy's cousin's looking for a programmer. I went, games? I could go program games, sure. And so I decided to go interview for it, and I walk into this little teeny, the place was about the size of my apartment, really, and there were 10 guys crammed in there. When I was a kid, this is kind of funny, I think it's part of how I got the job. I loved the movie Real Genius. There's a character in there, Chris Knight, who he goes to his first day on his job, and he's wearing this shirt that says, I love toxic waste, and he had a little toy on his head and stuff. And I said, someday, I want to go like that to my job interview. I want a job where that's how I walk in. So I did that. I went to the interview. They see me for the very first time wearing this shirt that has a Tasmanian devil eating a peace symbol on the front. It says, I love toxic waste on the back. And like, oh, I think this guy's probably going to fit in, is how I imagined it went. You'll have to tell me if that's true.
Mike was shaking his head no during the story. I was giggling.
Well, I think Alan's the one who did that interview, so.
What did you say?
We knew if somebody came in a suit to the interview, then they wouldn't be a cultural fit. So when Bob rolled up, you know, in a I Love Toxic Waste t-shirt, yeah, we knew he was probably the guy. So, actually, I want to go back to Mike's story, too, about producers from Interplay coming over, because if there are any developers out there in the audience, there's a little joke we have at Blizzard, and this will be useful for you or aspiring developers. We learned that no matter how well polished our milestones were, producers always had to find something wrong with it to justify their own job. Oh. And this was before we were publishing our own work, so when working with outside producers. So we got in the habit of putting a couple things that were obviously terrible in the game. So the producer could come up and go, you know, well, that background looks really good, but the yellow duck in the corner, could you remove the yellow duck? And so it became this joke that we would always hide a yellow duck somewhere in the background so that when having external producers review our work, they had at least one or two things they could critique and they could feel good about themselves without giving us trouble about the stuff that we actually really liked.
Sam, what was the culture like at Blizzard then?
Well, we had a lot of work with ducks. We got very good at making ducks for the people to point out and say, oh, can you remove that? All right, fine. The culture was just a bunch of all of us hanging out, right? Making games, we were making art, we were playing games on the side. You know, Dungeons and Dragons was a huge, huge game that we played. I mean, I think, Bob, you ran a
I ran
year one over email when we were working on StarCraft, I think, right, or something.
I ran multiple email D&D campaigns that stretched for probably 10 years. One of the longest ones, I think, ran for 5 years. Sammy got a character to raise up to be a demigod level.
Ew. Yeah, but so, yeah, even our email games take long to make. But what it was like, you know, we were always just playing games and hanging out. And, you know, as we got bigger and as, you know, people had families and, you know, got married, had kids, things like that, you know, we didn't see as much of each other, but the culture was still there because we still had these games that tied us all together. No matter what we were doing outside of work, whatever, we always came back and there was something with a Warcraft or a StarCraft that always kept us together. And we always had that sort of link. Even now, like, everyone here has a link with these games and with us. And it's really cool how these games have held together just, you know, a group of people across the world that anyone from different countries can talk about something in Warcraft and the other guy's like, oh yeah, exactly. Even though they've never met and they've just met here at Blizzcon countries apart. So it's pretty cool that things like Dungeons and Dragons brought us together, things like World of Warcraft, StarCraft, all of our games brought everyone here together. So, you know, there's power in that. There's power in these games that, you know, keep us communicating with each other.
And you know, Frank, you've talked a lot about the games that you were playing at the time during those early years, really inspiring the development of those early Blizzard titles. What were some of those?
Yeah, I mean, when I think about the games that influenced me, I even go back earlier than the days of the early days of Blizzard. And like, I had an Intellivision when I was in junior high. I had 50 carts for my Intellivision, and I had an Apple II. You know, we were talking about a game on the Apple II called Rescue Raiders that I say, go play if you want to see what the early days of the mobile looked like. The Rescue Raiders was like the...
There was one person
knows Rescue
way
Raiders,
on this side. It was like, Rescue Raiders, finally.
It was a fun game. You know, I think also what was great about the games back then is that the scope of content was so much more contained and smaller, and even the early games that we were working on, you know, Alan mentioned it, you know, just a handful of people, you could make a game. He was making games by himself. Even the SNES titles we worked on, we, you know, did it with 8 people, and now our teams are 300 people large, and that was a really unique experience to be able to work on a game with 8 people. You can go out to lunch and everyone can talk about the game together.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think all of us have been lifelong gamers. It's just that, you know, the games that we played back in the day are nothing anyone in this room has heard of.
And I mean, I know that community is such a huge, you know, part of Blizzard Entertainment. For instance, hi Haldi, hello, lovely to have you here. When we think of community, we think so much about, you know, live events or YouTube or Twitch, a lot of the new social media, but during those early days, I know that you still had really interesting interactions with rabid fans. Mike, I was wondering if you could talk about Operation Seawall.
Any of you know what Operation Seawall was? Few people. So while we were working on StarCraft, the game was announced. Everybody knew we were working on it, and there was this group of people that basically got tired of waiting. So they formed this sort of fictional group. Seawall stands for Can't Wait Any Longer. And they started scoping out our office and counting the number of cars that were in the parking lot late at night and extrapolating stories about where that meant that the StarCraft was in development. And they started putting up fictional stories about what was actually going on inside. And they had this conspiracy theory that Alan and I were just sitting, basically holding on to the Gold Master discs that were really actually complete, but we wouldn't, for some, you know, evil corporate reason, wouldn't let them out of the building. So it was all in good fun. So we ended up making that a cheat code in StarCraft, Operation Seawall.
I went to my storage unit to try to find a wardrobe for this panel, like old school, like Blizzard stuff.
Yeah.
None of it fits anymore. But I actually found an Operation Seawall t-shirt in my bin with my other legacy clothes. Unbelievably.
Pretty cool.
And I mean, you know, Alan, you were talking at the start of this panel about how for those first 3 years, it was like 1 week away from closing down, but you guys just kept pushing it and kept pushing it. What was the first of those early titles that you really feel like cemented a sense of stability there?
Well, I knew we'd arrived for certain with Lost Vikings and Rock and Roll Racing, and they both came out pretty close to each other. And those two titles, Lost Vikings won Puzzle Game of the Year, and Rock and Roll Racing won Racing Game of the Year. And I think it was in the same year. And that was out of 7 awards, and the companies we were up against were companies like Konami and Capcom and Sega and Nintendo. And our tiny little company with around 20 employees took down 2 of the awards. And I knew we hadn't arrived yet financially because we, you know, of course, had horrible royalty deals, and those titles, we didn't own them, we didn't publish them ourselves. But we knew that, or I knew anyway, that fundamentally things would change after that, because we were on the map at that point, and the phone started ringing off the hook. And shortly thereafter, we were able to start developing and publishing our own titles, and that led to Warcraft and Warcraft 2. I think our big breakthrough financial success was probably Warcraft 2. Warcraft 1 came out and it sold fairly well, but kind of steady, slow growth. But when Warcraft 2 came out, it was apparent that Warcraft 1 had finally kind of broken through and built an audience over time that was just ready for Warcraft 2 when it came out. So I'd probably say Warcraft 2 was the financial kind of breakthrough, and Lost Vikings and Rock and Roll Racing were really the 2 of those were the ones when I knew that we had sort of arrived.
And I mean, I know that there was so much early success with the Warcrafts, the Diablos, the Starcrafts, but I know that the release of World of Warcraft was a completely different beast for you guys. Frank, talk a little bit about leading into that launch.
So, I mean, we, back in the day when we sold a lot more of our products through brick and mortar retailers, we used to host midnight launches and midnight signing events down the road, right? The Fry's Electronics in Fountain Valley. And so we had hosted a midnight signing for Warcraft 3 and the Warcraft 3 expansion. And you know, it was fun. It was great to have that opportunity to interact with our community, which I don't think we necessarily realized at the time was as large as it really was, because we just sort of saw this microcosm of it. So we might have had 500 people that came out for the midnight signing for the Warcraft 3 releases. And so we hosted the same midnight signing event for World of Warcraft. And it, you know, we literally created traffic on the freeway with the event. So we're trying to get to the event so that we can participate in the signing. You're sitting in traffic to get there. You get off the freeway. There's surface street traffic everywhere. The parking lot is full. We parked down the block, like 3 blocks down. Had to walk in. You're walking in, and there's this line that's going down the street and down the block. Like, what is going on here? Like, why is the line off the property?
I thought that maybe they were holding another event that
Yeah, like, what is there a concert? What's going on? And we got onto the site, and there must have been 2,000 people or more that showed up for the midnight signing for World of Warcraft. Line went around the building at least once, around the parking lot, down the street, down the block. And that sort of, for me anyway, was the moment when, I realized that we had a very, very passionate community that was much larger than we could have imagined, and B, the night that our business changed overnight. Like that night, midnight, we launch it, and our business is different, right? We're not just putting product in a box, delivering it, and because we love the product, making patches, all of a sudden, we felt a tremendous sense of obligation to all these people that love what we've done, and are living in this virtual space that we've created, and we need to continue to maintain it.
And I mean, I remember you guys sold out immediately, and then like reprinted and sold out again. Wasn't it just like way more massive than any of your projections?
It was. We had a lot of trouble keeping inventory at retail, but then we had a bigger problem, which was that we didn't have enough capacity on our server infrastructure to support printing more boxes. So we actually had to stop. We had to stop replenishing the inventory several times during that first year as we added more hardware.
How long did it take for World of Warcraft to be like stable? For you're like, okay, good, all right,
Is it stable now?
is it stable?
Is it stable yet?
Did I set you up? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
No, I think
my
we're
bad. I'll
actually,
take responsibility.
I think we're doing pretty good now. It really took a year for us we had to actually redo the entire infrastructure until we sort of finally were able to get our heads in a good space.
Yeah.
So, but it was, as you know, after a year, we still had some issues, and it took a long time to get to where we are now.
I mean, I can only imagine you're kind of like, yay, it's really successful. Oh God, it's really successful. I mean, like Alan, from a business side, in terms of like projections, EverQuest was the big MMO at that point in time. Were you like, hoping to get a fraction of that, hoping to exceed it? Like, how were you thinking of the product before you hit this incredible launch?
So one of our strengths at Blizzard in the early days, and it's ironic actually, because we were so idealistic about making games, and really still are, that we didn't really ever think much about the business side of things. We just wanted to make World of Warcraft because we loved that genre of game, and really had no idea how successful it would eventually become. I remember Mike and I were up in Marina del Rey at a meeting with some executives from Electronic Arts, and we had mentioned to them in this meeting that we thought maybe we would get to 1 million users. That was our optimistic scenario. Even for us, that was a ridiculously optimistic scenario. And I remember them literally laughing at us and saying, where in the world are you getting those numbers from? And we didn't have a great answer. We really had no idea. And so, to imagine that World of Warcraft would go on to become what it did is pretty neat. But sometimes, once a decade or so, these new genres of games open up and a technology enables something that didn't exist before, and there's really just no way to know. And it's at times like that games like World of Warcraft, a company that is just made up of gamers that love games, a company that's willing to take a risk like that is able to do something different, do something new, like something really huge, without really understanding or knowing what its potential is. And so there's some opportunities like that today, which we're looking at.
Did World of Warcraft have the notepad in it?
What was that?
Did they have the notepad? World of Warcraft?
Oh,
the
yeah.
notepad in the box?
Did it?
I don't know. I can't remember.
I don't know if it did. Do you remember if it
We
had?
weren't doing notepads.
We used to have
Yeah,
that.
go ahead. Yeah,
I know
tell the
Warcraft
notepad story.
3 had a note.
I thought we did that even
notepad
You
in
guys
it.
remember the Blizzard notepad in the old games?
Yeah.
They love notepads.
We used to, remember the games back in the day would come in a giant box and it'd have like one disc. It's like clack, 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 clack. Well, we put that notepad in there and it went thump, 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 thump. And everyone's like, value buy. And it came with free drawing paper, right? I've seen so many people have cool doodles or notes on it, but yeah, we used to have the notepad in our boxes. We haven't done that.
Yeah.
Was it War 3 maybe the last one? I don't recall. No one remembers. All these old guys upstage. Huh? I don't know.
I remember on
Let me
StarCraft.
check my notes. I think I wrote it down on a pad.
On StarCraft, we joked about filling the box with sand and calling it dilithium crystals or something like that. So it'd be so heavy,
rocks.
you
We're
know.
gonna have real crystals. And
Yeah, you think it'd be worth $100. It was so heavy. It'd be a box full of sand and
they'd
a
be
floppy
the
disk.
crystals for the pylons.
Darren Crystal Dust.
I mean, during this period where there's this massive growth of the company, I mean, Bob, from your point of view, how did things shift and change during those years after the release of World of Warcraft?
Did you just say Bob?
Yeah, he said Bob.
How did it change? really, for me, it was a surreal thing going from the I Love Toxic Waste t-shirt in a tiny place, moving through 5 different buildings. I think there's been 6, but I've been in 5 different buildings, and watching each one of them grow and get more and more people. And now, you know, at the very beginning, the company was practically this big, and now the company is that big. I had a sword rule, I called it, where I knew everybody, but then we exploded. People were coming in, there were so many people, and I couldn't keep up with how many there were. And we give away these things. At 2 years you get a Stein, at 5 years you get a sword, at 10 you get a shield. I made the sword rule that was, if anybody's getting their sword, by then I know who you are, but there's so many people now, it's just exploded. It's crazy how big it's gotten. It's just surreal.
And you know, once Warcraft had been out, or World of Warcraft had been out for a while, this is when we started to see a whole explosion of new titles in the sort of modern Blizzard era, with Hearthstone and Heroes of the Storm, and then Overwatch. I mean, Mike, what was that like transitioning to creating a whole bunch of additional products, or were they still just in development alongside World of Warcraft?
Well, certainly World of Warcraft took the entire focus of the company, like the entire company. You know, it's one of the reasons that it took us so long to get StarCraft II Wings of Liberty out. You know, Bob mentioned that he was working on World of Warcraft for a year. Well, that's because he wasn't working on StarCraft II. And so we had a lot of people that were kind of pulling from everywhere to help us finish World of Warcraft and then continue developing it. And it wasn't until 6 years later we released StarCraft II, and then you know, Diablo 3. And so I think at this point we've sort of finally gotten to the point where we've been able to scale across all of these multiple teams and focus on operating these games globally. But it took us a while to get there.
Yeah, I mean, Frank, what was that like? Because I've heard people say that you shouldn't think of Blizzard as one company. You should think of them as like the 5 teams all working.
I mean, certainly so. For a long time, it felt like we were the World of Warcraft company almost exclusively, and it took a long time for us to scale and segment so that we could actually do more than one thing at a time. And so now, yeah, with all the different games that we're operating, each of these teams and the leadership of those games has a tremendous amount of autonomy in determining not only the content they create, but how we're going to deliver it, how we're going to support it as we go forward. And so, yeah, we have a leadership structure for each of these game teams, and we rely on them very heavily to make sure that they are shepherding their products appropriately and thinking about all aspects of it, making sure that it's a successful, sustainable business in the way we want it to be.
Yeah. And I mean, I have to ask about the most recent Overwatch, which I know is really good. It's like amazing. But it was, you know, it was a bumpy and difficult process to get there. What, you know, Mike, talk to me about the development of Overwatch and what that experience was like.
Well, this was sort of coming out of the cancellation of Titan, where we were thinking about, look, what do we really want to work on? And they came up with this idea for Overwatch, and the entire team was just so excited about making it. They just went to town and really brought this vision to life with these amazing characters, and it's really a great story of triumph for that team.
Yeah, yeah.
And I can tell you, you know, one of my favorite, people ask me, what are your favorite BlizzCon moments? And definitely one of my top favorite moments is the announcement of Overwatch, because we had all been playing the game and loving it, and we had all fallen in love with that opening, the announcement cinematic.
Yeah.
And usually when you have something that big, there's this big risk that something will leak, an image will leak, and we didn't have any leaks or speculation leading up to the announcement. So we're all backstage going, oh my God, nobody, this is perfect, nobody knows, nobody's
that's-
expecting anything.
I think it's the only time I've ever seen Chris Metzen actually look nervous on stage. He was nervous, and I started to get nervous because, like I said, there were no leaks. I was like, "What's happening?" I was just watching, and I mean, just seeing the elation from the Blizzard team was just, so amazing. And one of the big things that I wanted to touch on is, in this day and age, there's so much social media. There's so much ability to share stories of how people have played your games, to share fan art, to see the community in a way that you were unable to before. And Sam, I want to ask, what are some of your favorite community stories, your favorite chances getting to see the people who've played your games for so long, like face to face?
Well, we've had, a ton of art from the community from all over the world. I mean, and a lot of it is better than what we do, in my opinion. So instead of looking at that and feeling intimidated or feeling, I'd rather be inspired and say, hey, let's see what this person is doing. Like, we have a fantastic story. One of our artists, Luke Mancini, named Mr. Jack. Are you guys familiar? All right.
Woo! Mr. Jack. Yeah.
Well, anyways, he was this guy, from Australia, and every time for StarCraft 2 we'd release some artwork of a new unit or something, he would do one that was as good or better. And we saw that, we're like, I wonder what this guy's doing. So we ended up giving him a call, and now he's working on the Heroes of the Storm team, doing a lot of the artwork for all of our heroes and everything. And it's just something that, going out to all the artists here, I know there's a lot of artists that want to work at Blizzard and are really inspired by Blizzard games. If you create the artwork and you post it, chances are one of us is going to see it. So don't be intimidated by the artwork. If there's something that you want to do, and create it, we'll see it. Put it up on, Heroes of the Storm, WoW, all the different social media sites. So, it's like, we're all of us in our own way are artists. We love to create. We know you guys like to create. How about you guys come create with us,
I have a story about...
But wait, 1 second though, don't let Sam fool you, because the best community moments that Sam has had, especially as it relates to BlizzCon, is being the front man for Elite Tauren Chieftain and playing on the stage in front of all our fans at BlizzCon.
I think Frank actually...
How many of you guys want to see Elite Tauren Chieftain return to BlizzCon someday?
That's so shameless.
We're not actually playing this BlizzCon, right?
What did you say?
I know, I'm sorry.
There's still time, there's still time.
Yeah, Mike, you got your base? All right, hold on. Everyone follow this.
Oh, we're
Clap,
talking about you guys playing Elite Tauren.
I am more than a fish. I am more than a man. Death will rise from the tide. I am Murloc. I am death.
There's your concert.
Follow that, Weird Al.
All right, let's do the Murloc battle cry, everyone, okay? 1, 2, 3. There, concert performed.
That's right. You don't open.
A lot easier this way.
You don't open for the other band. They close for you. I get it.
That's right.
Metallica closed for us, yes.
Mike, you briefly brought up Wei Wang just a moment ago.
Yeah. Well, I was going to tell a story about... So I was on one of my trips to China. I always try to visit the game rooms when I go out to Asia, and we were visiting this one game room in China, and I get approached by this kid, and he hands me a portfolio of his art. And I open it up, and some of the most amazing art that you've ever seen, all Blizzard inspired, and it says something like, I love Blizzard, I love Blizzard games, here's my art, I would love to work at Blizzard one day, and it's got his information. So of course I brought that back, showed it to Sammy, who was, thought it was amazing, and that's Wei Wang, one of our amazing artists.
Wei is one of the artists, you guys know Wei? Yeah, he's responsible for a lot of the key art for all of the Blizzard projects, right? He's done some of the most killer art that we've done, and most recently you see like Warlords, Legion, things like that. That's all Wei, and he was just this kid who loved Blizzard art, and showed it to Mike, and now it's, I think, 10 years later, probably even more maybe, that he's worked on the movie, he's worked on all the games, and all it took was him just saying, I love Blizzard art. So that could be the next one out here, maybe.
So
practice.
they're bringing up a lot of art. I'd like to also point out, for those of us who like design and engineering, that the same thing applies to designers and engineers. We've hired designers just because they've done great mod maps for Warcraft 3 or StarCraft 2. Sometimes there's a lot of programming involved in some of those, and we've hired programmers who have pointed to, look, this map I did. And so a lot of what you guys do gets in front of us, and we see it, and we hire people based on that.
Bob has been one of our main programmers for years, right? And I remember Bob taking time off work. That's why StarCraft was late. Taking time off work to go to like a programming contest, right?
Yeah.
And he came in second place. Can you imagine what the first place guy must have been like? Like just some super brainiac creates toxic waste instead of just hiking it.
It was a team.
A team? It took four. It took four to defeat you.
4 people from Australia to beat me.
All right. So, all right.
Actually, I want to continue that line too. Designers, you may or may not know Jeff Kaplan. We recruited Jeff Kaplan because he was the
Everyone
guild
knows
leader.
Jeff Kaplan, yes.
Yes, but the part of the story you may not know is that we recruited Jeff Kaplan because he was the guild leader of Legacy of Steel in EverQuest, which secretly a bunch of the Blizzard employees were a part of. Was there a Legacy of Steel player out there? Oh, I thought I heard a clap. Alex Afrasiabi, also, he was the guild leader of Fires of Heaven, and we reached out to him because we played with him and knew him from the game. Kind of a funny story very recently. I won't tell you what game it is, but guild leader of my guild in a game I've been playing recently, I PM'd him in-game, and it was quite humorous because he refused to believe that I was who I said I was.
Yeah.
And so I told him, okay, that's totally reasonable. Tab out and email me, and I gave him my email address at blizzard.com, and I'll bounce it back to you. And so he did, and I bounced it back, and he still refused to believe that I was. He said, well, you could be spoofing their email, which you can't really do if you know anything. You can spoof it one way, you can't receive it, you can't hijack it. So I said, okay, let's do this. Call the main number at Blizzard tomorrow and navigate through the phone system at 9 o'clock, and I'll be sitting at my desk and I'll pick up the phone and you can talk directly to me. And then what happened was, I wasn't at my desk at 9 minutes. So at this point, he was convinced it was not real. So I joked with Bob, let's walk out to the orc statue and take a picture holding up his name. And
like proof of life. We'll put a newspaper with today's date.
Yeah. And then I thought, no, he won't believe that either because he'll think we photoshopped that. So we scheduled a proper phone conversation, and I think 2 or 3 days later, and around 20 emails, he finally kind of believed that what had happened was for real. The way he described it was being Charlie and Willy Wonka and opening his candy bar and getting the golden ticket. So we'll see where that goes. But for those of you that play, we are out there. And if you're good and playing a game of a genre that we're interested in, it's not uncommon for us to look for gamers as a source of designers.
Yeah, through all kinds of games. There may be some people out there that know me from another game even. So yeah, we're in lots of games. We're everywhere.
Now, I'm going to ask just one more set of questions to the panelists, and I believe that there's someone out there scouring for some of your questions that we're going to be able to close out with after that. So get ready, I hope. Should be happening. The last thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is the explosion of esports and Blizzard, having so many titles throughout the years, and then, the Overwatch League coming forward. I mean, Mike, I want to ask what it was like to see StarCraft become such a phenomenon in Korea, and then to see the rest of Blizzard games sort of fill in throughout the rest of the years.
Yeah, I mean, one of my first trips to Korea, I went to see a live StarCraft event, and it was just...
What year was this?
Gosh.
We've talked about this
99.
before, and we
Probably
weren't
when that
entirely
was.
able to nail it down. It was
Somewhere from
Must have been
99
like
to
2000, 2001,
Probably
something like that.
99 or 2000.
I thought it was the 5-year, but then you thought it was the 10-year, and we never.
I think we were celebrating 2 million copies of StarCraft
That
sold in
could be
Korea.
it, yeah.
So I don't know when that was, 2000, 2001, something like that. But we had this big event, and you never know how many people are going to show up to these things or whether anybody even knows about it. And we were driving up, and there were just people everywhere, and the whole arena was packed of people, and the intensity during the match was just amazing. This game that we worked on, but the crowd seemed to understand what was happening way more than we did. I mean, every little thing that was happening, they were just on the edge of their seats and cheering, and it was just so amazing. It took many years for that really to start expanding outside of Korea. I think Warcraft 3 had some success globally. It started to become very popular in China, and then they changed the laws. They used to broadcast those things on TV in China, and then they made it so games couldn't be on China, which really set esports back in China several years.
Wow, I had no idea.
But we dreamed of the day when esports would become a global phenomenon. We could take the passion that existed in Korea and sort of exposed competitive gaming to the rest of the world. And now it's really about finding the best way to identify, showcase, and celebrate the top players.
Oh, yeah.
And then humanize them in a way that you can really understand the incredible stories behind these players.
Yeah, and I mean, I love the way that you guys are supporting esports right now. I don't know if you guys have seen the stages. They're insane. The rafters are built into the Overwatch logo. You didn't need to do that. That's awesome. And so, since we only have a few minutes left, I understand that is that a line forming? I think there's questions from somewhere, but honestly, it's very bright on the stage. And what I'm hoping is that I will just hear someone's voice come in soon.
Hello, Sean.
Hi guys, my name is Stephanie.
Stephanie,
I would like to
can you just tell me where
guys.
you are? I have
Right
no
here.
idea.
Right here.
In the center.
Hi, Stephanie. Yes, hello, welcome. Sorry, go on.
Thank you guys, first off, for all this game, especially for me, is amazing. This is my first Blizzcon, and I've been a fan of you guys since I was 5 years old. I'm 27, so I would like to ask you guys, especially for Alan, but all of you, how does it feel to first create Warcraft back 10 years ago, have that baby, and then now come back 10 years later and see it grow? Do you feel accomplished? Do you feel proud? How do you feel?
Alan.
Yeah, was that for me?
Yeah.
I think I heard, yeah. So I've been asked generally how it feels coming back now, and the way I would describe it is overwhelmingly awesome. So when I left, we had World of Warcraft and StarCraft 2. And now coming back, we have 6 mainline teams, and the company's quite large. And it's a lot to wrap your head around. Of course, during the intervening 10 years, I've continued to play all of Blizzard's games and been a huge fan and remain a great friend with all the senior guys at Blizzard. So I've been away from the public eye, but still very engaged with Blizzard's products. And I'll tell a story real quick. I bet the World of Warcraft team, just by way of giving an example of how much I've continued to play, I stood in front of them and I bet the entire team that I had more achievement points than anybody on the team. Which is one of those things, like, as the words were coming out of my mouth, I realized it was too late to stop, but it was going to be horribly stupid, but I said it anyway. And I bet the room that I'd buy everybody in the room a drink if any single person in the room had more points than me.
You guys want that bet here today with Alan?
Oh.
You told the story.
All right, hey, tell you what, I'm not going to make that bet, but I am curious. So I told the room, anybody who has more, and the number of points I have is 20,400. I said, stand up. And only one guy on the team stood up. And so that guy won the entire team drinks. I'm curious here. Anybody have over 20,400 achievement points in WoW? Stand up.
Alan will buy you a drink later if
All
you
right.
can find him.
All right, outstanding. And so I've kind of behind the scenes continue to stay engaged. I'm super excited to be back. And in some ways, you know, never really left.
Thank you. And our next guest is...
My name is Jeremy Tuck, and more than 10 years ago, I met my wife in Fairless, and we celebrated our second anniversary by coming to Blizzcon in 2008.
Woo!
All right.
And we had a kid a year later. We named her Jaina, and she's 7 now. And we're here on the 10th BlizzCon celebrating our 10-year anniversary and the 25th year of your company. And I wanted to thank you all. And do you guys have any statistics on how often this kind of thing happens?
I've met people that have met in the games. I've met people that have met at BlizzCon. There's actually a couple that met while talking to me at the BlizzCon charity dinner, and and they come back every year, and it's sort of like their anniversary as well. It's just amazing. We've had proposals at BlizzCon. It's pretty crazy. I don't have any statistics on it though.
Have we had an actual wedding here before?
I don't know.
Somebody should do a wedding next time.
I just want to say thank you for that.
Thank you.
Really, thank you.
Sorry. Hello, my name is Jack. This is my 4th BlizzCon in a row. And I just want to say thank you for creating 25 years of games and supporting our addictions. And any chance you guys could create like a remastered version of Warcraft 1 and 2?
What was the question?
For DLC?
Okay.
Sorry, can you ask it one more time? People were too excited.
Create the remix Warcraft 1 and 2 like as a DLC on the Blizzard store?
I don't understand.
I gotta be honest with you.
We're having a hard time.
We're having a hard time hearing.
Maybe if everyone yelled it at the same time. All right.
I think he's asking if you're going to make a remastered version of Warcraft 1 and 2
remaster
for
of
DLC.
Warcraft 1 and 2.
Oh, guys, please answer that, please.
We are fortunate enough to have all the original source code and assets to everything that we've done in the past. But it turns out it's really hard to access that stuff, unlock it, and figure out how it works because we're old, we've forgotten. But we had some dedicated folks that were passionate about the idea, dig up the Warcraft 1, Warcraft Orcs and Humans assets and code, and they got it working and they got it running in a window. And I played it, and Warcraft Orcs and Humans was awesome for its time. And I promise you, in today's world, by today's standards, it's just not that fun anymore. And so, we have limited resources with everything that we choose to do. We would much rather work on amazing content for World of Warcraft for you guys, or for Overwatch, or evaluating what future product pipeline might be, and devote our time to that rather than going back and digging up those fossils.
At this time.
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 But it's totally appreciate your enthusiasm for those old games. We love them too.
Thank you for the question.
Yeah.
Hi, just want to start by saying thank you for the 25 years of amazing, epic content. Your games have literally saved my life, so thank you for that. Now, my question is kind of for each of you individually. You've revolutionized very many different game genres, like RTS, FPS, all that. What is the genre each of you would love to work on that you haven't gotten a chance to do yet?
Well, since we're a little low on time, I'm going to direct this to one person. I don't know if any of you specifically want to take this question. In that case, Bob.
I've worked on every game that I would want to work on from Blizzard. Hearthstone is my favorite by far, and I got to be the technical director for that, so yeah, I'm already happy.
Go ahead, Alan.
Oh,
yeah, he's talking about like what game.
Well, I guess
like
I'm
to work
the
on
one,
that we haven't.
who hasn't directly worked on anything for a while. I'm super excited about mobile these days. So, something in mobile.
Mobile. Something mobile, he said.
Ah. Hello and welcome.
Hi. I know you guys used to blast Judas Priest back in the day. What other kind of music motivated you guys?
I mean, I've always been a huge fan of the Police and Sting. I can't even tell you how many times I've seen Sting in concert. I think there's something like music, art, artistic expression. There's something very unique in the opportunity to elicit an emotional response from the viewer or the listener or whatever. And so personally, like the music I hear from Sting elicits an emotional response to me. And I think when we have really powerful moments in our games that elicit an emotional response from you guys, I think that's really special. You know, I think Arthas's journey is a great example of where we were able to find something that people were very emotionally invested in. So, just rambling now.
Probably my two favorite bands are Rush and Rush.
Rush.
You mean Rush with Leon Getz?
And the Beatles.
We have a joke. It's an inside thing. Ask me after if you want to know who Leon Getz is.
So we unfortunately don't have any more time for any additional questions, but we are going to do a quick closeout, and Alan, I want to direct this to you. You have had the opportunity to step away and to see Blizzard from the outside and then to come back. And I'm curious what you've seen and what you're really excited for Blizzard in the future.
There are so many amazing things happening at the company. I've been warned that I have a big mouth, and so not to talk too much about what those things are. I can't wait to show you some of them at next Blizzcon, I hope. But there are a ton of really great things happening at the company, and we have insanely ambitious plans going forward. You've seen some of it here at BlizzCon, and it's pretty spectacular. There's a lot more cool stuff we're working on, and we can't wait to share it with you in the not too distant future.
Alan, thank you so much. And I, of course, want to say thank you all so much for coming out today. And to these 5 gentlemen who've been with Blizzard since the beginning, thank you so much for 25 years of Blizzard.
Thank you all.
I've spent my entire life playing Blizzard games. I have met my dear friends through Blizzard games. I have a career thanks to Blizzard games. And really, the best part about it is getting the opportunity to meet such amazing people. So I hope you have a wonderful rest of your BlizzCon and that you go make a friend. Cheers.